Hello and welcome to Channel 2S. I'm your host, Second Soundwave. So today we're finally taking a look at the completed high-grade Universal Century Silver Bullet. Starting off with the general appearance of the kit, the Silver Bullet is a admittedly plain model. It's predominantly molded in varying shades of white and gray, with some blue here and there to help break things up, although unfortunately many of the blue sections are in fact nothing more than foil seals. In fact, there are a lot of seals on this kit, including this entire chunk here on the shoulder, these little areas on the top of the elbow, this pair of thrusters on the backpack, these additional thrusters on the top and the bottom of the wings, these blue circles on the hips and on both sides of the legs, these white stripes on the leg thrusters, these black rectangles on the back of the legs, these gray stripes on the back skirt, and also these gray rectangles on the front of the knees and the entire ankle guard. So yeah, the stickers are terrible, but it's really not a reason to avoid this kit because there is some amazing stuff this guy can do that we are just scratching the surface of. But before we dive into all that, we need to talk about articulation. So starting up here with the head, it can look around. It has a little bit of a limited ball joint. You do have to be very careful that you don't break these fins back here because they're very delicate. They're pegged in by these little tabs going inside his head, and obviously you don't want those snapping off unexpectedly. So it rotates around, it swings around, it spins around. There's technically a joint here at the bottom of the neck that's supposed to allow his head to tip up, but because his collar bumps right into the back of his head, even when it's standing just looking straight ahead, it means this joint is pretty much useless. The shoulder is on a swing out joint, and by swing out I mean barely swinging out at all, almost not swinging out. The shoulder pad itself can lift up quite far, but the shoulder itself really only goes up to 90, so no real gain there. We got a bicep swivel right here, 90-degree elbow, ball jointed wrist. Round here on the backpack we got a lot of stuff that moves. We have these pieces that can go 90 degrees back and then all the way back up. We have these fins that move from here to here. We have the backpack sections here themselves that are on ball joints back here so they can move around all over the place. And then they're also at a hinge at the top so they can rotate forward, but that's something we're going to get into a little bit later. Down at the waist there is a single ball joint, and because of the way this guy's torso is designed, it is completely unrestricted. He can do absolutely whatever you want. It's got a bit of tilt to it too, so there's really no limit to this guy's torso movement. Now the hips on this guy are a little crappy. They basically just only go out to here, and they're also kind of loose, which is also a bit annoying when you're posing him, but ultimately it is not the worst issue you could possibly have. In addition to going out, the hips also go forward this far, and if you want you can kind of slide them past the front skirt and get them quite far up, in fact about as high up as you could possibly ever want his legs to go. Similar story going back. It goes a little bit back, you can kind of stretch it past the back skirt, get it way out there, and then you come down to here and there is a swivel right at the thigh. The knee has a 90-degree bend, which is a little on the low side, but not too bad. The kneecap can wiggle just a little bit, and yes, this is actual articulation. It's on a joint in here. I don't know why, but it is. This flap on the back of the leg can move in and out. The ankle guard here on the front can come out to about there. And the ankles themselves, oh boy, the ankles. This guy right here. So, his feet can go back this far. That's a lot. They can also go frontwards, this far. And the toe bends, so you can actually get it this far. Of course, it has a rotation at the ankle right here, and then if you come to the front, you're going to quickly realize that you can actually take this guy's feet and tilt them inwards quite far, enough to get a nice, strong, firm, wide-legged stance, and because this guy has a really big foot base, he has pretty much no trouble standing on his own. So here you go guys, just a point of reference so you can see how poseable this guy is. Just a quick little pose I threw him into, but you can get a good idea of what kind of stuff you can get out of this guy. Obviously no kung fu gymnast poses, but you know what? For such a big hefty mobile suit, he does pretty darn good. And in case you haven't noticed already, this guy is really, really big. How big, you may ask? Well, here he is next to the average-sized RX-78-2 Revive version. Yeah. He even makes the Unicorn Gundam look a little on the short side. The freaking Unicorn Gundam. And here he is next to the Jester Cannon just because I need an excuse to show this guy off because he is super freaking awesome and I love him. So now it's time to talk about the gimmicks of the Silver Bullet, and this guy does a lot of stuff. So we're going to start up here with a backpack, which is just a big old treasure trove of fun. So first thing you can do is actually swing these pieces down over his shoulders. In the instruction manual it does tell you to take off the head, but if you rotate it to the side like this, you'll actually be able to clear the antennae from these back pieces anyway, so it ultimately doesn't matter. But basically you tip this back and you swing this whole section up, and you want these little claws to come down over his shoulders just like that. But you see, this is just the beginning of the fun, because you can take these little flaps right here, lift them up, and he has some really cool sculpted in bright blue little missile pods. And then when you come around here to the back, you can grab your thumbnail underneath here, just hook it in there, lift it up, and you have some incom units. And these can be detached from the backpack, and if you look in there, there's a little square hole, and there's a little hole right here, and you know what that means. Now the wires you get with this kit are actually intended for another part of the model, so they are a bit long to do this with, and the weight of the wire ends up weighing it down quite a lot, but if you're careful and patient, you can get the incoms out and flying around, and they look pretty darn cool. So the feature those wires are actually meant for is built into the arm. So what you want to do is you want to grab the arm and you want to pull it off, and then pull the elbow out of the and then you take this little rectangular doohickey and you stick it in the hole where his elbow once was. Just like this, you push it down in, just like that. And then you take this piece and you stick it in the arm where the elbow was. You stick one end of the wire in here, and the other end of the wire goes in here. You take this nice little stand and you slide it right over here. And now you've turned your Silver Bullet into Mr. Fantastic. So I have to say, as far as wire gimmicks go, this is one of the better ones I've seen, just because you do get an actual stand to hold the piece up, so it's not relying on the weight and strength of the wire, since this wire is actually not that strong. But with the stand holding up the arm, he has no trouble holding his arm out at that range. And if you want to make it look a little more realistic, you can also take this hand off, just like this, and replace it with one of these open hands, and they do have tilted wrist connectors. So the hand is tilted up like that, and it looks like he's reaching out to some unknown foe. But, as with any great Gunpla kit, you have options. Let's say your Silver Bullet is piloted by a new type. He doesn't need this. What's he going to do? Well, if you come back here and remove this connector from the forearm, you can take this new piece right here. Look at this. Is this cool or what? Huh? I think this is pretty awesome. You stick it in right here, and now your Silver Bullet has an adorable little T-Rex arm that he can use to hold other weapons while his arms are zipping and zooming and flying around, shooting and grabbing and punching everything they see. So the first of the Silver Bullet's weapons we're going to talk about are these little pair of missiles that do actually remind me of the jumbo beam sabers that you get with the Double Zeta Gundam. And attaching them onto the model is incredibly simple, because there's a clip right here. You put them up here at the thin side of this antenna thing, you slide it down, and there's a nice little click, and now they're on. And also, as with basically every single Federation suit, you get a pair of beam sabers. Unlike most Federation suits, you don't really have anywhere to put these. Until you realize that despite no mention of being in the manual, you can actually take the beam sabers and attach them to his backs using the same clips that would normally hold the missiles. And then starting off the long-range weaponry, we have a Jigen-style beam rifle and a trigger hand to hold it. It's pretty basic, but it does look pretty cool, although it is a weapon I find myself almost never using just because of how cool everything else the guy comes with is, that this rifle here and the beam sabers just don't cut it. And finally, we have the biggest and most complex weapon on the entire model, his shield. Now unfortunately you don't get any marking stickers, which is a shame because there's kind of a big flat area up here, and I kind of wish he at least came with like some big stenciled numbers so you can put like a, 01 or an 04 or a 23 or whatever number you want to put up there on there just to fill in that big blank space. Maybe a Federation logo, I don't know. Feels like it needs something. He does have some very nice little blue pieces right here, some little missiles or grenades or whatever you want those to be. The underside of it's white. It's very plain. It has a tab. He has a tab, once again, down here. And again, like with the Re-100 Bawu, it's on the underside of his arm, which means you have to twist his arm funny if you want him to actually have his shield in front of him. And I hate it when they do that, and I wish they'd stop doing that with their kits. But fortunately, being a shield isn't all this guy can do, because you can also take the front part, extend it out, and open up these flaps, and it turns into a pretty awesome looking beam cannon. And there is only one accessory left to talk about on this guy, and that is his alternate face, because you get both a Jigen type face and a Gundam type face for this guy. Unfortunately, you can't really switch them out that easily once the head's together, so I just decided to stick with the Jigen face, and I think that's a pretty good choice because it does have that awesome translucent blue visor. So in the end, do I recommend the Silver Bullet? I'm going to have to say yes. This was a really fun kit to build. He does so much stuff. You have a ton of display options. You have different build options. There's a fair bit of articulation for such a bulky suit. And while it does have a lot of stickers, I think it's just a cool enough design that kind of offsets the nuisance of having to put the stickers on. And it's not like you have to put the stickers on either. I mean, you could paint some of them in. Like, all these blue ones on his legs, the ones up here on the hips, the ones on the side of the legs, those are actually sculpted in details underneath the stickers. It really wouldn't be that hard to paint them if you wanted to. But really, when you look at it, this guy has a ton of awesome features. He has a bunch of really cool weapons. You have all those display options I mentioned before. Articulation's good enough. His hips are a little weak. He has crap stickers, but for the most part, I do recommend this kit. Now, it is a little on the bigger side, a little more on the expensive side, but as you saw, this is not a small model kit. So if you can get this in the $25 to $30 range, it is definitely worth every penny you spend on it. So that just about wraps up today's video. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, do remember to leave a like and share it around with your friends. So very soon I will be starting on some awesome new builds. So if you want to keep up to date on that, as well as other things I do on this channel, such as Gunpla News, be sure to hit that icon that's appearing on the screen right now to subscribe if you aren't already. If the icon's not showing up for some reason, there's also a subscribe button either below or beside the video, depending on your browser. And there should also be a couple other videos popping up here on the sides somewhere, all along here, for you guys to look at. So, go nuts! I'm your host, Second Soundwave, and I'll see you next time.